Kia ora koutou whānau. Welcome back to another episode of Big Hearing News. This is the summer sessions with the best of. It's Thursday, I think, the 11th of January. I'm guessing. Not at the time of recording, but it is as the time of watching. Tonight on the show, we're going to have a look how Duncan Garner, Matthew Hooton, and Chewie are all in agreement on something, as uncomfortable as it might make Chewie feel. Also, we hear about these advocates for free speech. We've heard it a lot actually with the Israel-Gaza situation. All these advocates for free speech all of a sudden aren't so quite advocate-y for free speech when it's views they don't like or don't want to. Well, there was another one of those episodes during the year, right, where a whole bunch of free speech advocates came out to disparage and not want to protect the free speech of someone who just happened to be a brown woman. Wonder if there was a coincidence there or not. So we'll have a look at that as well. And also Christopher Luxon's learning Te, but then as he learned Te, he decided, as happens a lot in the New Zealand National Party or the right in general, that he'd pull up that ladder so other people couldn't get what he got to learn today as well. This is Big Hearing News. This is the summer sessions. It is Thursday, the 11th of January. Thank you for being with us tonight, or if you listen to this in the audio podcast, welcome, welcome, welcome. So lovely to have you on board, and let's get into tonight's show. They were talking a little bit about Mr. Luxon, and we already know that Matthew Hooton is not a massive fan of Christopher Luxon, but he has some interesting things to say about when someone is considered such a good CEO, how can they be such a bad politician? And then Duncan Garner comes in and talks a little bit about something that Chewie's been echoing for the last 6 months. Let's have a listen to what these bunch of fellas had to say.
I would say
the dirty businessman.
It's terrible. No one likes to see that sort of thing.
No,
You see someone's career is failing as badly as Christopher Luxon's is. When I think one of the important messages Christopher Luxon is showing us is not even about politics, but about the poor quality of business management in New Zealand. If you consider this guy was meant to be the executive of the year and the businessman of the year, and he can't even give a speech in Parliament. So I think. No, I don't think anyone takes any joy out of that.
Sure,
and I don't think that there's any mood to have a coup against him.
Not yet.
Well, what the focus groups I understand show is that would be bad.
Oh, right.
Whereas if there was if Christopher,
yes,
and he prefers Christopher.
Yeah, he does prefer
to his family and friends.
So Hooton's saying that the focus groups say that if Luxon went, that would be bad for them in the polls. That's summarising what he's saying.
It's Christopher.
It is.
Yeah, Christopher. I mean, I think that if he searches deep into his soul,
He searched deep into his soul. Yes,
as Jacinda Ardern did,
she did. That's
and
right.
into the focus groups,
Sure.
and as Andrew Little did, I think that he'll hear a voice.
Oh, he'll hear a voice.
I
And
think he'll
will
hear a
it
little
say,
voice,
I'm not going to.
Time to stay.
and he'll realise that. It's an okay job being Minister of Finance.
Sure.
I mean, Michael Cullen was
Minister of
He
Finance.
was. David Seymour's got that job.
Minister of
Duncan.
None of that's real. That's not true.
Duncan, the difference between
Minister of
Chippy,
Climate Change.
the difference between Chippy and Luxon is that Luxon wants to be your boss mate. The kind of emotionally draining relationship where you are always laughing at the boss mate's jokes and always doing what they want in the weekend, whereas Chippy just wants a sausage roll. Chippy has the greatest of New Zealand values: basic dorky competency and affable. Can Luxon win the battle of beige personalities?
No. If Luxon can't beat this Labor government after the last 5.5, 6 years, and they've been pretty incompetent at times, they haven't delivered. They've been an awful setup. A lot of the time.
I mean, they have tried, though. They wanted to build those houses.
Every time they tried harder, it got worse. And if they can't beat them in a cost of living crisis, if it's the economy stupid, then Luxon's got to go now. He should not be at 30% or whatever it is.
But replace him with who, Duncan?
Yeah, but this is their problem. These guys are devoid of...
I think this point coming up by Duncan Garner is probably one of the most interesting points about preferred Prime Minister. It's really important to listen to, and I think that this might speak volumes to the election at the end of the year.
But look at this. Every incoming Prime Minister that I've reported on in the mainstream, when I was doing mainstream, now I'm a podcaster.
Yes.
Podcaster daily. They've called me editor and chief. Or editor and chief.
Focus, Duncan,
anyway,
focus.
So every time we've done polling in the last 20 years, every time there's a new Prime Minister that's come in, that Prime Minister has been the preferred Prime Minister weeks and months in advance of that. Okay, they all
Right.
have. Clark was,
Okay.
Key definitely was,
Yes.
and Jacinda was. Okay,
Yes,
easily.
yes,
Bang, bang, bang. It counts. The preferred Prime Minister must be the preferred Prime Minister going into the election. If Luxon's sitting at, 16, 12, 10?
Oh,
Yes.
It's hopeless.
Right.
And they're in real trouble. That should spell huge warning bells for them, because you've got an economy going like this, you've got the pessimist, optimist stuff going in the right direction for the opposition, and you've got an opposition leader who can't garner those votes.
Right. Right.
It's a crisis in National.
Follow-up question.
I
What do
wouldn't
you
use
It's,
it.
it's a crisis, and you can't admit this because you're still paying.
I think it's very important that
true.
they don't panic.
Oh, don't they?
I think it's very important that they don't
Don't
panic.
panic.
You're 100 and something days away.
Panic.
You're in trouble, mate.
It's a
Panic,
controlled,
panic.
it's a
Panic.
controlled flight into terrain. At what point do you start panicking?
When you hit the ground.
Maybe you just wait till
You just wait until it crashes and then decide who you're going to drag out of the wreckage. I love
Luxon's
it.
been in aviation. He could stop that,
Follow-up question.
So there you go. So the point, it's all very, very talky, lots of shouty, talky, but their point at the end was really interesting, to make it clear, and I'm sure everyone is clear on this. Every Prime Minister since Duncan Garner, he was in the press corps, and he's worked in as a journalist for a long time, who has basically won, was always the preferred Prime Minister going into the election, according to the polls. So that speaks volumes, and that's why he's saying he has to go now, and National should be panicking. Chewie, now you're in bed with these guys, obviously. You're all a similar mind.
I'm a little bit torn. I'm torn when Hooton agrees with me, because the dude's so wrong so often. But of course, on this, he is 100% correct.
Right.
And can I ask the question? The dude in the middle, is that Damien Grant?
Yeah.
Why do people keep talking to that man? He's got columns, he's got shows, he's got appearances. Why is his name not fronted by twice convicted fraudster Damien Grant?
Mm-hmm.
It annoys me. Yeah, look, I think they're right. I think they're right. Like, they are heading towards high terrain. Everything is screaming out, pull up, and they're not going to, because it'll make them look weak. But it's still going to make them weak when they lose, and then he resigns.
The interesting thing, though, is I guess Hooton was saying that I'm assuming he's being internal polling, says to get rid of Luxon now would not be a good idea, but the common conversation is they need to get rid of Luxon now. So so they have to make a leap either way. They have to either make a leap to get rid of him, and the internal polling is saying that's not a good idea, or they leave him there, and he comes in at preferred Prime Minister 12%, and National lose. I guess that means roll him. Actually, that means roll him because if the opposite is you're 12%, so you lose, then even if the internal polling says it's a bad idea, that means you're either going to lose or you might lose, but let's try something else. So I think that means roll them, even though I don't think they will, Chewie. You won't win your bet.
Yeah, look, they probably won't. They should. I will be ecstatic if they do. But, I mean, from everything that we've seen for all of these, like as I said on Twitter earlier today, unforced errors from National. They don't have it. Like, maybe Nicola Willis has the snuff to be leader. Maybe she's a doofus that's just going to lean into the mic and go, we'll get AI to do it. It's going to be messy either way. Like, if they just outright lose the election and then a whole bunch of people quit, who are we going to be left with? We've talked about the National Party. They're half full of incompetent half-wits and religious zealots. You know, where are the good people? Like, and I say this with a little bit of relish, but for our system to work well, we have to have an effective opposition, and we don't have that. I mean, National back down on one of their own policies about urban intensification. Luxon went to a meeting full of boomers and basically and ahed his way through that. But one of the things that he said is he doesn't like intensification anymore because ACTs don't like it. So I don't like it now either. And the best way forward for more houses is more greenfield development. Like, and what, 100 days out from the election, he's making that much of a flip-flop? It's insane.
Welcome back. Hope you're enjoying Big Hairy News, the summer sessions, and the interview that just played. I want to say a very, very big thanks to all our lovely patrons, especially during this time where we are away on holiday and we're not doing the same amount of work to generate income. You all know that income for BHN is pretty small in generally, but these lovely people who are on board at the moment as our patrons, we appreciate you very, very much. If you have become a patron during the summer period, you probably won't see your name on the billboard because this was at the time of recording what we had. All those lovely people who are part of our Coffee Run of Fuel patron level, and also the people who are executive producers, senior producers, and super patrons. If you're interested in being involved with what we do, then all you need to do is head to patreon.com/BH Big Hero News. I need to get my address right. Patreon.com/Big Hero News to be a part of the team, to be a part of what we do. 2024, we're going to focus in a new and different and fairer way on those lovely people who become part of our patrons. So there'll be more on the table over the forthcoming year for you guys being patrons on board than there has been in the past. I know you just got on board because you love what we do and you want to support us, which we appreciate greatly. But 2024, there will be more of a focus on actually providing patrons unique opportunities beyond what we're currently doing as well. So it's patreon.com/Big Hairy News. If you want to be a part of what we do, then we would love to have you on board. And thanks to all of those people who are currently patrons. We love you to bits and we genuinely appreciate what you do. Right, let's keep going. This is Big Hero News. This is the summer series. Tusiata Avia is a acclaimed author and a poet in New Zealand. Tusiata Avia has released a poem that's going to be used, I believe, by, let me get the correct group, some Auckland performance group, Auckland Arts Festival. Now, the poem is called The Savage Colonizer, and it's about James Cook, and it's confronting. I mean, let's be honest about it. And I thought what we should do before we actually get into it, because as you know, when people talk about things like this, not many of them actually have seen or heard the bit they're talking about. It's 3.5 minutes long, but I think that we should watch the whole video, like watch the poem, because then we know what we're talking about. Mm-hmm. Now, because this is on, I think it's from Spinoff, they've put warnings all over it. We don't do that here because we don't have any broadcasting standards, and you guys know what you're getting. So let's have a look at the poem. And then we're going to go into some conversations because, as you all know, there are some free speech purists in our country, and this is poetry, and the free speech purists are coming out in force to support someone's artistic expression, especially when it comes to free speech, which is a good thing. It's a good thing. But let's play the poem first.
250th anniversary of James Cook's arrival in New Zealand. Hey James, yeah, you in the white wig and that big Endeavour, sailing the blue, blue ocean like a big asshole. Fuck you, bitch. James, I heard someone shoved a knife right up into the gap between your white ribs at Kealakekua Bay. I'm gonna go there, make a big makahiki luau, cook a white pig, feed it to the dogs, and fuck you up, bitch. Hey James, it's us. These days we're driving around in SUVs and looking for you. All white men like you who might be thieves or rapists or kidnappers or murderers. Yeah. Or any of your descendants, or any of your incarnations, 'cause you know, hey bitch, we're gonna fuck you up. Tonight, James, it's me, Leilani, Danielle, and a car full of brown girls. We find you on the corner of the Justice Precinct. You've got another woman and a headlock, and I've got my father's pig hunting knife in my fist, and we're coming to get you. Sailing around in your resolution, your friendship, your discovery, and your fucking free love. Watch your ribs, James, because I'm coming with kalani o pu'u, kane kapolei, kana ina, ke awe o pala, kula ili moku, who is a god, and Nua'a, who is king with a knife. And then, James, then we're gonna fuck you up for good, bitch.
And I apologize. It was stuff.
Wow.
Credit where credit's due. Stuff.co.nz put that out there. If you haven't heard that, Chewie, I've heard it now 3 or 4 times. I'm happy just to give you the floor and give you what your first impressions, and then we'll start talking.
That was a lot. I know that David Seymour doesn't like this.
No. He's a free speech purist. You're not right. You can't be right. Tell me your thoughts on this, because I don't believe that.
Look, I think it's really, really confronting. It's provoking conversation, which all good art should do. It should challenge you. I don't really think it's for me. It certainly had an emotional impact. But yeah, it's like, it's art. Not everybody's going to like it. Not everybody's going to understand it. But it exists. It could just be as simple as, it's not meant for me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think art can be meant for everybody, even if you're not the target of it. But if it's not for you, it's not for you. I mean, if you, the easiest way to think about that often with art, I guess, is paintings, isn't it? Or visual art, because people have styles and people like things that they don't like things. So let's have a look at David Seymour. Obviously, I was being fairly facetious with you, Chewie. You probably picked up on that slightly. So the advocate of free speech, this government should withdraw the $107,280 in taxpayers' money given to a racist stage show about murdering James Cook, his descendants, and white men like him with pig hunting knives, then apologize to the public for giving so much to racism in the first place. The poem goes on to suggest descendants of Cook and all white people be tracked down and stabbed. It doesn't actually suggest that. That's why I wanted to play it, because it doesn't suggest that at all. It doesn't even, like, even if there was like some kind of allegory behind it, doesn't even give an allegory to say all white people. It's not. It doesn't say that. It literally does not say that. Should be stabbed through the ribs, the pig hunting knives. The poem can be found here in all its glowing review. So remember, this is David Seymour, who is a free speech absolutist, who provides spaces for places like Stand Up for Women because they've got a right to speak. That he will go the extra mile. And we've talked about David Seymour before when it comes to things like the Māori Health Authority or being equal, based on race. It is so interesting to me that you've got a Polynesian woman who is giving her artistic expression, and that's the time that David Seymour comes in to say, nope, this is not allowed, right? And don't buy into it's all about the funding, horse shit, right? It's not all about the funding. They're saying the speech should not be allowed, no matter how much they say the speech is fine, but we don't want the funding. It's don't buy it. Don't buy the bullshit. Chewie, what do you think about that? About the time that David Seymour, the only time I can recall where he's kind of come out against anything to do with speech, and he's on the maybe this should be reduced, is when it's a brown woman.
Yeah. Oh, every single fucking time. I'd have more respect for ACT and David Seymour, like nominally that they say that they're a libertarian party, but then they aren't whenever they want to be.
Yeah, of course.
they're not libertarian when it comes to drug legislation. They're not libertarian when it comes to free speech at all. It is very, very one-sided with them.
Yeah.
They are not libertarian when it comes to law and order. It annoys me. You know this. Everyone knows this.
Well, you've been annoyed then. Let me show you this. You're going to be annoyed in a second. Hello.
Oh.
Now, there's a really, like, if you're playing poker, or if you're, I mean, you know how, Chewie, when you may know this from nieces or nephews or younger people around you, when they're lying, they often explain something contrary. Like, you'll never ask for something from them. And I've had my kids and stuff say before, like, they'll bring up the chocolate that they've pinched, and we're not even talking about chocolate. So they kind of project into the atmosphere the idea of what they did because it's what they did do. So Sean Plunkett in this conversation, sorry, Karen, has spent so far 15 and a half minutes rallying against this poem. He's probably said 5 times, it's my free speech, it's my free speech, she's entitled to her free speech, it's my free speech. And he does it so much, you can just tell that he's not talking about the money. He is overemphasizing this idea about you've got the right to make this statement. He, in my opinion, my honest held belief is what he's saying is she shouldn't be saying that. I'm going to play you the last couple of minutes of this. I actually mentioned the one of the quotes from this last night when we were talking about how authoritarian Sean Plunkett is turning. Now, I didn't know I was going to play this tonight, but if you saw last night's show, you would have seen I put up a tweet that I put out on Friday. The quote is from this clip of audio, where he basically, he literally says that the government has to run funding decisions through him. So let's have a listen to Sean Plunkett. Now, remember, Sean Plunkett goes on and 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 on about being free speech. The platform's about free speech, free speech, free speech, free speech, free speech. Everything's free speech until it's a brown woman who says something that he doesn't like. If you follow me on Twitter, you should go and have a look at the image that we just put up, because we gave Sean Plunkett some pearls to wear because we thought that after tonight he might want to clutch them a bit more tightly. So here's free speech absolutist Sean Plunkett talking about this poem, putting forward a case to hinder her speech.
I challenge anyone to say they are not outraged at that and they don't find it offensive. Maybe that.
Okay, I'm not outraged by that, and I don't find it offensive. There we go. We tick that one off. We'll keep going.
That's good art, but it's publicly funded art. And I believe it's publicly funded art that can do nothing other, and I'm exercising my freedom of speech, but sow division and racist tension in this country, racial tension in this country. Now, we're going to put I can't believe I'm saying, we're going to put that poem, inverted columns, up on our website later today. And I want to have a conversation today. I believe in freedom of speech. I believe Tusiata Avia has the freedom to write that poem with all its anger and its vitriol and its reverse racism. She's got a right.
Oh, he said it. He said
reverse racism. But remember, I mean, if what Sean Plunkett is actually hinting at is art can't be angry, what? Art can't be angry?
Of course it can.
What are you talking about?
Of course it fucking can.
I'll give you an analogy at the end of this. And the analogy, I almost, I'm going to say this arrogantly, will stop anyone who thinks like this and will stop this conversation. We'll just keep going with Karen.
And I guess she's got a right to call it art.
I guess she's got a right. I guess you'll have
But she doesn't have a right to take public funds, and the government doesn't have the right, without my permission, to publish and promote crap like that.
Without his permission.
I expect better, and I expect more, and I expect public accountability for public funds. And if she wants to sell that privately or find people who'll pay and go and see it, knock yourself out, sister. That's freedom of speech.
There you go.
No, it's
Sean
not.
Plunkett.
Sean Plunkett doesn't know what freedom of speech is.
No, he doesn't know what losses
We've
is.
talked about this before. Freedom of speech is the government can't come in and arrest you for saying the thing that you just said.
Yeah. So let me paint you a picture, okay? This is a Pacific Island woman talking about Pacific Island teenagers. The way I read it is still being impacted by the effects of colonization. Kind of going, wish you'd never fucking turned up, right? And some people would think that what happened to Indigenous people around the world is much like a genocide, right? Once they were colonized. If this poem was about 3 Jewish teenage girls doing that to Adolf Hitler, no one would care about it. It would probably be applauded and accepted. If the subject matter was Hitler and the teenagers who were going after Hitler were 3 Jewish girls, this wouldn't be a conversation, which raises the question, why is it a conversation? Because it's 3 brown girls going after someone. And look, I'm not the community, so I'm not the person to say this with absolutism, but that I wouldn't be surprised if they kind of thought akin to what happened there. I'm not comparing completely, but you know, genocides that were atrocities that were committed against their people by this invader. And I just think if we look at it that way, and then come back to the complaints about this, like if all of that poem was the same, but it was instead of James Cook, it was Adolf Hitler, and instead of some Pacific Island names, it was Jewish names, we wouldn't be talking about this. Now what?
It's almost a genre of film, is the old revenge power fantasy in that. Like you mentioned Jewish people getting revenge on Hitler. You've got Inglourious Bastards.
Yeah.
You know, revenge fantasy has always been something that people have played around with in stories and that sort of thing. Like it's a gimme for them, because they can turn around and they can claim that it's reverse racism, which I'll stress again is not something that exists.
It doesn't exist.
It's just racism.
Yeah.
But I don't like it when they use the term reverse racism, because it suggests that it's a one-way pipe. It's fine going the other way, but it comes back. No, I don't like it. Yeah, it's just a small reversal provokes such a response.
Yeah. Racism is very simple. It's when one race subjugates or criticizes or thinks lesser of another race because of their race. That's it. So in other words, there's no reverse. There's one race looking down on another race because of their race. That's racism. So
I'm going to put up a tweet that I just read, and I think it's really good.
Go.
Okay. Government should support art that is challenging and provocative and provide opportunities to engage with the history of colonialism, even if later-day colonists think that it's a more egregious crime than the crime of literally stealing an entire nation from their people. That is the real freedom that we're otherwise denied, because victims of colonialism are often not themselves able to bear the full cost and risk of making that art, because the whole social and economic structure that would have supported it was stolen from them along with the country. So, yeah, I can put up with Sean Plunkett and David Seymour being a little bit uncomfortable. I can put up with my own discomfort in some of the language and the tone in that poem. It doesn't affect me, though.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't an existential threat to my existence, and it never will be. Like, James Cook has had fantastic press for a couple of 100 years, and it's only now, in the last 30 or 40 years, that we're turning around going, maybe some bad shit went down. Yeah. Like, I find it funny that people sort of commemorate his fuck up in Hawaii. I love that for him.
We're going to add one more little part, and it's only a couple of minutes long, maybe 3 minutes long. And this is Stephen Wainwright, the Creative New Zealand CEO. He went on News Talk ZB to talk about Tusiata Avia's latest project and the funding that has gone into the Auckland Arts Festival, because they're adapting it into a stage show. So that's the other thing that's, you know, a big hubbub. It's that this is being adapted into a stage show, and some people don't want to see that. I tell you what, it also kind of feels a bit like. I don't want to be too dramatic here and maybe use emotive language, but the whole critical race theory bullshit in America. What basically the conservatives in America are saying is we don't want to be made to feel bad about what happened to black people in America and to the indigenous people.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of, to me, I'm not saying it's an exact parallel, but smacks a little bit of that. It's got the same stink about it as that, having to now think about how other people were impacted in a negative way, and potentially those things still flow on today on some level from things that happened to their communities, their countries, their maraes, their villages 200, 300 years ago. So let's just have a listen to Creative New Zealand CEO talking to Heather du Plessis-Allen. I don't think she's going to bully him because he's an adult, but let's just have a listen to the conversation.
Including a poem about murdering James Cook and other white people like him. Creative New Zealand is helping to fund a stage show based on the poetry for the Auckland Arts Festival. And it's drawing some criticism. Creative New Zealand CEO Stephen Wainwright is with me now. Hi, Stephen.
G'day, Heather. How are you?
Yeah, I'm okay. Thank you. This is pretty violent. Is it okay to fund this kind of stuff?
It's interesting what's been written about it, because actually it's a work of the imagination. So it's not like a manifesto or anything like that. So I think it should be read in that context. There are certainly some, as it says, there's some violent language, but of course, we don't. There's many
pieces of art with violent
the colour
language,
purple, the clockwork orange, whatever, that have violent language. It's a really terrific book of poems, actually. It's one of 43. I would really urge your listeners to go to the library or the bookshop and have a read. It's very stimulating.
So ACT has drawn attention to this, Stephen, and the point that they make is the government is trying really hard to crack down on hate speech and stop people having hatred from one race to another.
So this is a really important, speaking of dog whistles, right? Heather du Plessis-Allen asks a question about hate speech, and he says it's not hate speech. And she goes, oh, no, I'm not saying it's hate speech, but it's kind of like hate speech. So just have a listen to the process.
Isn't this kind of exactly the thing they're trying to get rid of?
Well, no, I would really encourage you and anyone else to actually read the poem. I think to call this hate speech is
I'm not. Stephen,
enormous stretch.
Please don't.
It's actually a criticism of racism and Cook's legacy.
Right. I'm not calling it hate speech. I'm just saying they're trying to crack down on hate speech, and this feels quite violent and like it might be kind of like skirting there. Stephen, listen. It's kind of weird, though, isn't it? In a day and age where we're talking about Roald Dahl having to be rewritten so we don't say the offensive word fat, that we're funding work right now that talks about going around and trying to F people up.
Yeah, I accept that some of the language is strong and it's not to everybody's taste, absolutely. But it's also figurative language. And, I think the counterfactual which would be that, we censored people from expressing their thoughts according to some narrow version of what is correct would also be troubling.
Okay, well then go on, Stephen. Tell me that you oppose the Roald Dahl rewriting.
I actually, this is probably a shameful
thing to say. Culture war point in there.
I'm not very familiar with Roald Dahl's work, although my son loved it very much.
Stephen?
So I can't speak authoritatively on that.
I don't think you should be the CEO of Creative New Zealand if you've never read Roald Dahl. He's a legend. Well, he's problematic, but he's a legend, isn't he?
I can't.
Well, he probably is. But see, we're primarily interested in New Zealand writers and literature. To be honest with you, Heather.
Shocking, Stephen. Thank you. Appreciate your time.
And then apparently she finished the conversation by doing this.
You went to Fiji. Are you serious?
Sorry. All right, I'll turn that off. I'm sorry, Joe. I'll turn it off. Just for people who are finding it in the chat as well. I was concerned for Karen Plunkett today because I thought his head might explode if people talked about this in a different way. So we did indeed give him a set of pearls today. So indeed he could clutch them tonight. When possibly some people started talking about this in a different way. Hey, got a team. Welcome back. I hope you're enjoying the summer series, summer session. I'm getting them so confused every time. I'm not sure which is which. I just wanted to let you know as well that we do have our merch store still running during this summer period. What we have available at the time of recording is Beardy Boy caps and Beardy Boy t-shirts. The black on black is very sleek. Of course, the blue on yellow is because Otago colour has got to be. And we had a spare BHN hoodie, which is now sold out. So there's no BHN specific product to sell during this. But what we are going to do is, if you enjoy what we do and you want to support us and you want to have a bit of this sort of a gear, what we are offering is a 25% off any of that stuff that's left over whilst we are broadcasting these best of shows. So 25% off anything. All you got to do is head to bhnshop.nz and at the checkout use the promo code SUMMER. The promo code SUMMER to give yourself 25% off any of that merch that is in there. Thank you for those who have bought already. You probably, if you haven't received your product yet from Summer, you probably will be getting it soon because I did some sending out in the week of the 8th of January. If you're going to order tonight, then you can expect to have your stuff within a week or so, because I'll keep on top of it. bhnshop.nz if you want to support what we're doing. That is Big Hearing News, the shop, and of course coming back in 2024 there will be more product on that shop, more merch to get like we did last year, which you guys loved to bits, and we loved you to bits for doing it. bhnshop.nz. All right, team, we're going to keep trucking right now with another story for you in the BHN Summer Series or Summer Sessions, whichever you prefer, here on BHN. It's Big Hearing News. This is the latest example of hypocrisy to the max from Mr. Christopher Luxon.
Tēnā tātou katoa. Good evening. Christopher Luxon is batting off allegations of hypocrisy after admitting that while he was chastising the public service for getting extra benefits for speaking te reo, the taxpayer paid him to learn Māori. And as political editor Jenna Lynch reports, it wasn't the only awkward moment for the Prime Minister today.
Ka nui kia koutou, kia ora, good afternoon everybody. Thanks for
an official language from the official podium.
Of course, we want to support people learning te reo. We think it's a fantastic language.
Christopher Luxon thinks it's so fantastic.
Let me just tell you this as well. We're not going to watch the press conference. I've got 2 clips lined up for it, but they're like 4 minutes each, and we're not going to be here that long. This is what National's doing at the moment. National are pivoting to saying, no, we were talking about bonuses being paid. No, we were talking about the bonuses, not about people learning today. But unfortunately, we played a clip for you last week, and it's in this news item. Mr. Luxon says at a media scrum, if people want to learn te reo, they should pay for it themselves. So they're trying to spin it now to say they've only been talking about the bonuses, whereas the truth is, Mr. Luxon, he set a standard, right? Where we are judging him based on his words, that if people want to learn te reo, they should pay for it themselves. So let's just let this go through.
He's scrapping incentives for learning it in the public service. But his own te reo lessons came courtesy of the taxpayer.
Oh, aren't we generous, Chewie? Hey? Aren't we generous? Just flipping that money out when people don't really want it.
Is it hypocritical of you to take taxpayer money to learn te reo Māori when you're threatening to scrap incentives for public servants who do the same?
No, I have a finite leaders budget, as do all leaders of political parties. You get to choose to spend that money on whatever you wish that you think would help.
The government wants to remove bonuses for public servants fluent in te reo Māori. A couple of weeks back, the PM defended that policy by telling public servants to pay for their education themselves.
There it is.
In the real world, outside of Wellington and outside the bubble of Parliament, people who want to learn te reo or want to learn any other education actually pay for it themselves.
Unfortunately for the taxpayer, Christopher Luxon lives inside the bubble, though he's not sure how much the taxpayer paid.
You said you're going to go through every single budget line item by line item. How can you not tell us what your line item costs?
Well, I'm sure we can provide it to you, but the bottom line is I don't know off the top of my head.
Has the public got a good outcome for their investment in you? Can you, for instance, like a good outcome?
Well, as I said to you, I found it really difficult. I think Chris Hipkins said something similar. You know, when you're learning later in life, it's actually really difficult.
And that's the other thing I wanted to touch on quickly, Chewie. When you're learning later in life, it becomes really difficult. I wish I'd done it when I was younger, while they're trying to hamper primary schools to having an hour of reading, writing, and maths. Remember, I've given you the numbers before. That means there's 4 to 5 hours across the rest of the week to do things like learning Māori. At a time when Mr. Luxon is going, oh, I wish I had have learned it while I was younger. So he's stopping people who are younger learning it by insisting on an hour a day of reading, writing, and arithmetic. yet he's saying it's easier to learn when you're younger, and I wish I had have done it. Now, I've got lots more to show you, Chewie, but go for it, sir. Have a crack.
Christopher Luxury, man, always within arm's length of almost getting a point and just completely fumbling it at every stage. Look, I do not have a problem with the leader of the government learning an official language of this country on the public press. That is not a problem for me at all.
I agree.
I think the leader of this country should be able to speak with a reasonable amount of fluency in Māori. Correct me if I'm wrong. Chris Luxon has said that he's been learning Te Reo for a while now.
Yeah, I mean, he started saying it last year.
That's probably the biggest sentence I've heard him say.
Interesting. It was today, wasn't it?
Those times. Yeah.
Isn't it interesting? Interesting? I think what he was doing is going, now we've got to look at our outcomes, and here's some of the outcomes you've been paying for. It's a bit embarrassing, but you've been paying for this. Here it is.
Yeah. And look, again, don't have a problem with the taxpayer picking up the tab. I do have a problem with the hypocrisy. I do have the problem of him catching himself out in an incoherent line of thought. The EV car rebate was subsidizing rich people to get Teslas, but that's fine for me also.
Yep.
The realization that it's hard to learn another language in later life, as you mentioned, while taking away the opportunity for people to learn it younger.
Can I throw one of
to support people learning it in adulthood for their government jobs.
So here's something else as well. Now, this is a rod that Mr. Luxon has made for his own back, because let's just have a listen to this.
But again, what I just say to you is for people like you and I who can afford to pay, there is no point giving us subsidized $5 prescription fees when we can actually take that money and go buy 13 cancer treatments instead.
Sure. So the point being, he's made a rod for his own back where he's going, if you're wealthy and you can afford X, the government shouldn't pay for it. So even if they managed to skirt around this by saying it's all about the bonuses, he's wealthy and he could have afforded to pay for Māori, to learn Māori, and he chose not to. So it's again what he's expecting of the country. If you're wealthy and you can afford the $5 fee, you should do it, while he himself is wealthy and not paying for things he can afford. So there's just no two ways to look at this. There's no two ways to look at this other than hypocrisy. As you say, Joe, I'm the same camp as you. I mean, you can. I think you can learn Māori for free. There's courses at various wānangas that you can do it. We can all do it, and that's fine. I don't have a problem with it. We're measuring him and judging him by his word, his standards, and the policies that they're putting out right now that they're choosing not to follow themselves. And I think, Chewie, the Tesla, the clean car rebate is the perfect one that you've mentioned. The utmost in hypocrisy that it's just for the rich Tesla owners, and I think he's done it twice, and now he's pulling up the ladder for other people.
And I think this just underlines a thing that I've said about Luxon for as long as we've been doing the show, right? It shows one thing very clearly, that Luxon is a political amateur and he's not good at this. Anybody would be able to see the optics of it and go, okay, well, I've got two choices here. I can just make a real big deal about the fact that I paid for this out of my own pocket. Or I can maybe backpedal a little bit on people in public service learning an official language of this country as part of their treaty obligations. That's important. And maybe we should stay away from stopping that from happening. But he's chosen neither one. And now he gets absolutely thrown to the wolves in Q&A.
Yeah, but rightfully so. I mean, this is the other thing. Absolutely. Now, I was just talking to Karen, and I still find a lot of the mainstream media disappointing. When last week both the Bish and Nicola Willis was saying, every dollar that goes onto these ferries, we can't put in towards roads and hospitals and schools. Yet the media hasn't yet gone and said, what about all those tax cuts? There are also dollars that can't go to things. So they're still missing a beat there that lots of us are seeing. Well, at least we're seeing. I don't know if lots of us are seeing.
Well, I mean, that ties into what we were talking about these guys throughout the campaign trail, right? is that the mainstream media are dropping ball after ball. And we need them to do better. We need them to push harder on the question. We don't just need the first question, we need the second and the third. We need to tie them all together. Let's show the depth of thought or lack of depth of thought that these guys have with their policies. Like I haven't even been here to touch on, the idiocy out of Bish. Actually referring to a couple of government departments by their te reo names, or little wee Simeon Brown shit canning projects of public transport and cycling and that sort of thing, which were getting huge dividends out of them and getting people out of their cars.
At this press conference, they referred to it as Kāinga Ora instead of Housing New Zealand, and when questioned on that, they were like, oh, well, because it's a new entity. It's not a new entity. It used to be Housing New Zealand. Yes, it merged with another one, but it was Housing New Zealand, which became Kāinga Ora, and so they're leaving it as Kāinga Ora. I can't actually remember why I queued this one up, but I remember thinking about itself, oh, that's a good one. We've got to play that. So I might just put 60 seconds of this across as well to wrap us up for the day and go from there. So let's have a listen to I can't remember what it is. Let's have a listen to what he's going to say here.
But don't misunderstand. We value te reo. We want people to learn te reo. We want to encourage people to do that. People should be encouraged to do that. I'm an example of that. I'm someone who genuinely wished that I had learned te reo as a younger person, and I never had that opportunity to do so. So now I'm
people learn it
because I actually think it would make me do my job better as a result of that. I took a limited leaders budget, which is available to me to spend on all sorts of things.
So what is going on and on and on about is I was allowed to. I was entitled to because I had the budget. Well, until you change the law, other public servants are entitled to as well. So that's what he's saying. Yeah, that was the clip about what he was saying about I was hard when I was young. I wanted to play that based on the thing I said before. Look, it's just hypocrisy to the max, and it's important it gets called out for what it was.
It's also really similar to what he said about the EV rebate as well. I took it because it was available to me.
Yeah, he's allowed to.
And that's cool. But again, we discussed that at length, the optics of that. Just because it's available to you doesn't make it a politically good decision to make.
Yeah.
When you're standing against something to go, well, yes, I, as a millionaire, could have claimed the rebate. But I didn't because I morally don't think it's a good idea, is a better argument than anything else he threw out there.
Yeah.